Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Sermon B-Sides. My name is Rusten. I'm one of the pastors here at Cormdale Church, and I'm here with Pastor Jon. What's up, Pastor Jon?
Good day.
It is a good day.
It's beautiful. It's supposed to be 80 today.
It was
82.
Super warm yesterday.
I think it was 80 yesterday.
I needed to get out and mow, but I know I'm going to die mowing in this heat. So I have a push lawnmower. Do you have a riding lawnmower?
I just got a new riding lawnmower this weekend, actually, because the one I inherited 5 years ago died.
Yeah.
And I have an acre to mow. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, I have an acre. I keep on slowly peeling back the grass, by putting I'm going to put gravel there. I'm going to put gravel there. But I have less grass to mow than I used to have. But I do get exhausted with the probably about half of my acre is grass, and I have to mow it. So, So, hey, we're picking up.
Yep.
Our sermon B-sides in the
Acts chapter 8.
Acts chapter 8.
Yep.
Post the stoning of Stephen.
Gosh.
And there's a bit of a I would say this is a sea change in the book of Acts, because what you have is you had super focused mission of the apostles and Peter at the home base, to the Jew first.
At the temple.
Going to the temple, preaching the name of Christ in the temple, getting in trouble for that, getting beat up for that, getting arrested for that, over and over and over again, getting freed from prison for that. And then it climaxes in this point where it's like, and one of the points I made when I preached on Acts 5 was that they didn't cede any territory.
Yeah.
Right? At this point in the story.
What do you mean by that? Because that's really important, but I think that's...
What I meant by they didn't cede any territory, it was kind of what we talked about in the last episode too, but it's his vineyard.
Yeah.
God
it's his temple.
He does not give it up.
Yeah.
He comes to it to claim it, comes to it to claim it.
Yeah.
And then he's either going to judge it or he's going to... or they're going to receive him, right?
Yeah. So much so that the apostles couldn't just leave the temple, go do their thing somewhere else.
No.
Because if they did that, there would have been... That would have eased the conflict, at least momentarily.
Yes. They were not allowed to ease the conflict through ceding the territory.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lesson there for us. We are not allowed to cede territory. All authority in heaven and earth is Christ, as a means of avoiding conflict. But there's a change here. The refusal to cede the territory now leads to the bloodshed of God's people.
Yeah.
And at that point, with the bloodshed, now there's scattering.
Yes.
But it's not. But God's not done with Jerusalem.
No.
Because later in the story,
this
is way later down in Acts, Paul actually, he gets in trouble and gets sent to Rome because he goes back to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
He goes back to the temple. So there's this emphasis of, okay, you keep preaching the name of Jesus until there's bloodshed, then the church scatters and keeps preaching while they scatter.
Yeah.
And then they return.
Yeah.
They keep coming back.
Yeah.
So there's that theme of coming back to Jerusalem. And then spreading out and going to Rome and going to all these other places to preach the name is demonstrative of this idea of never. They never say, okay, I guess Jerusalem isn't for Christ.
Yeah.
That never happens.
Yeah, and there's that. It kind of flies in the face of conventional wisdom. It would just say, well, wouldn't it be greater for the community and the witness of the church for them just to do their thing where it was less problematic?
It's contrary to the conventional wisdom of pluralism that says, let's just, now there's a kind of conventional wisdom behind pluralism that says, we can live with our neighbors no matter who they are.
Yeah.
But we don't live with our neighbors no matter who they are at the expense of truth.
Yes.
And at the expense of the lordship of Christ.
Yeah.
Christ demonstrates a care for the other.
Yeah.
That, and we should do the same.
Yeah.
But it's not a care for the other that somehow says, in my care for the other, I denounce the lordship of Christ.
Yeah. And one of the things about the persecution that's important to note, which I tried to highlight on Sunday, was that it's the people of the temple, those who are in power. It's Saul. It's these guys. They're the ones who are excluding the church.
Yeah.
Right. So the church isn't persecuting. It's not picking fights per se with these people. Mm-hmm. It's the others. It's coming from the other side.
Yes. The weapons, if you could call it the conflict has weapons. The weapons that the church uses is the gospel.
Yeah.
It's the word preached.
Yeah.
Right. And that word preached on the other side results on the other side
Yeah.
actually using weapons against
Yeah.
them, stoning
Yeah.
Stephen.
So the church is saying this is true, and
Yes.
then the other side is saying you can't be here.
Yes, exactly. So we also get introduced in this passage to Saul.
Yep.
And Saul, later in the story, God meets him. Jesus meets him. The risen Lord meets him.
Yes.
The risen in the flesh Lord.
Yeah.
So funny. I
Fit that into your Christology.
Yes, I had seen somebody on Twitter, somebody who's not really very, I would put them in the very far left wing of church stuff. Women in ministry.
Yeah.
Totally anti-complementarian. This person.
Women as pastors.
Women as pastors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's an important clarification. Women as pastors, and I think got her seminary degree at Fuller Theological Seminary, and she had said in a tweet recently, and I was like, "Say what?" She said, "Jesus, Paul," because trying to discount Paul.
Yeah.
Okay? Paul never actually met the physical Jesus, like the resurrected Jesus. He met the Spirit of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, say what?
Yeah.
Paul defends his ministry of being apostle by saying, I was an apostle born late, meaning he encountered the risen Lord late, because that's the requirement for apostles, was to know the risen Lord.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
he couches that by talking about how when he was resurrected, he appeared to the disciples to up to 400 at a time, and then to me, an apostle born late.
Yeah.
Right? And
So missing the text.
Yes.
Which is the kind of mistake you might expect a female pastor
Yes,
to make.
She was intentionally undermining Paul using this faux argument that resulted in dividing the hypostatic union. Right? Christ post-resurrection is always God and man, always.
Yes.
That's one of
Has his body now.
Yes, he is a risen God-man now at the right hand of the Father.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
That is a very crucial, important Christology. It goes back to the first century, okay?
Right.
And so
Right.
that might be earlier than it's actually codified. But the hypostatic union might be 4th century. But so Chalcedon, I think. So 4th. Okay. So sorry. Can I get my church history right?
Yeah.
Don't want to be caught spewing wrong dates. But to try to undermine Paul by saying he didn't actually meet the resurrected Lord, he didn't really know Jesus. That's why he's such a hard butt, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why we can discount what he says about women in ministry. That's why we can discount all this stuff. It was amazing that the route she went was to deny the hypostatic union without realizing it.
Yeah, and we gotta get back to the text, but I think that's an example of when people who are taking the Bible seriously and saying, hey, there are specific roles for men and women.
Yeah.
And when people are arguing the other side, one of the concerns that conservatives like you and me will be is you're opening that door by getting around this thing. You're opening that door to all these different falsehoods.
Yes.
And the slippery, people say, well, the slippery slope argument, it doesn't happen. It's no, it does. Once you do that and then you're consistent with it, you're going to end up in all sorts of weird places, like where this gal was.
Yes. And the slippery slope fallacy is only a fallacy if there's no evidence of decline.
Right.
And I'm sorry, there's so much evidence
It's rampant.
of decline. So, when you start, we literally do not know the difference between a man and a woman anymore.
Yeah.
And I believe that honestly has to do, some of that is the fruit of the church not proclaiming the truth.
It's the downstream effects of egalitarianism.
Yep.
Exactly. I did a podcast on that early on in the Blitz.
Oh yeah.
So
watch that. Listen to that one again. So, one of the things you emphasize, to get back to the text, because this is the fun thing about the B-sides. We can ramble on and rabbit trail, but one of the things that you emphasize was that the church was then. This is the beginning of the hardcore formal persecution of the church. Mm-hmm. It's also important to note that it was the persecution of the church happening through the Judaizers, through the Pharisees, through the Sadducees.
Yep.
It was basically saying, hey, these people are a scourge. They are really messing with the purity of the temple. We got to just make a strong statement, get them
Yeah.
out of here,
Yeah.
make an example of them.
Yes.
And the idea is to snuff them out. But it ends up going incredibly poorly against their favor.
Yeah, right.
It ends up resulting in the gospel spreading.
And not for the first time.
Yes.
Like, remember,
yes.
this is right on the heels of the crucifixion of Christ.
Yes.
Like, we're going to shut this whole thing down.
Yes.
We're going to kill him.
Yes.
And that'll put an end to it.
Yeah.
Except for it didn't. It launched it.
Yeah.
And then you have the same error being made again. We're gonna kill Stephen, and this will put an end to it. Except for it didn't. It just launched it
Yeah.
into Samaria.
Yes.
And
exactly.
more people are coming to
Yes.
faith.
Yes. There's something interesting about. I mean, it's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy of Gamaliel's
Yes.
thing that happens in Acts 5. If this is of God, you will not be able to overcome it.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what you see happening here. One thing that's interesting is that we know from Paul's letters that he was a student of Gamaliel.
Yes.
And so it's kind of interesting because Gamaliel seems like he wants to put the brake on the persecution here.
Uh-huh.
And yet Saul's like super ravaging it and going after it. So
Yes.
it makes it's interesting to me to think was there some break between the Saul and his mentor and
Yeah.
himself? But I also think that it's very likely the only reason we know that speech from Gamaliel is because because it says explicitly in Acts 5 that the doors were shut.
Yeah.
Which is a private.
Somebody was there.
Somebody was there.
Who told Luke.
Exactly.
Paul?
I know exactly. Like, did Gamaliel later tell Saul, like, yeah, I told them that that if this is of God, you won't be able to stop it.
Yeah.
Right. So.
I told you guys.
Yeah. So one of the things that comes up in this this passage is there's this crazy juxtaposition of persecution, lament, because Stephen is killed, and there's great lamentation made over his burial, and the gospel spreading, people getting healed, people being freed from the enslaving demonic forces, and we get this word that to me always stands out as this this is the fruit of the gospel, good news, right? So there was much joy in that city.
Yeah.
Could you just ruminate a little bit with me? Like, what is it that makes that possible? Persecution and joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's something that Luke. It's consistent through Acts.
Yeah.
Like Luke is going to repeat that, though not always in the same words. But you think about when Peter and John, like when they're getting busted and they come back and they share the story. Like, what do? They're rejoicing that they were considered worthy. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So you have persecution and joy, and those two things seem like the oil and water. They don't go together.
Yeah.
But they do go together. They're not the same thing, but they go together. So in one sense, in 8, the persecution of the church is leading to the joy of others, right? Yeah. So it's the people in Samaria who are receiving the news. And we know that people in Samaria had already been intrigued by Christ. Yeah. We know it from John 4 when Jesus meets the Samaritan woman, and she goes back and they come, and then a number of people are converted. But now this is even more widespread, right? So the persecution is the catalyst to the mini exile, if you will, the dispersion that then brings this good news of gospel, Christ is Lord, to a new region, and the byproduct. And you look at what's happening here. For unclean spirits came out of many who were possessed. Like, if that's your experience, and you know that the reason that happened is because Christ is Lord, how are you not going to have joy?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you are carrying the weight and the burden of sin, and you realize that there's no condemnation in Christ, right? You're going to have joy. And
it's a joy that you can have in the midst of everything else falling apart.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a joy that is not touched by those circumstances.
Yeah. So Stephen is persecuted. The believers are persecuted. At this point in Samaria, there isn't a persecution happening per se.
Yeah.
There's joy happening. But I think there's also, for the church, persecution and joy go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And there's something about, and I think both of us could tell stories about this.
Yeah.
But there is something about meeting God in pain that brings joy.
Yeah.
I was talking with a guy on Sunday. He was just going off on it. It was so beautiful. He goes, we talk about peace that surpasses understanding as if it's some small thing. But he's like, no, this doesn't make any sense to anybody. And yet you have this peace.
Yeah.
And it's like that peace and that joy is going to be experienced and had in situations that it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You can't understand it, but it's the place that you can be found. I remember actually months ago where I was really, really, or this is almost a year ago. Yeah, it was last summer.
Yeah.
A really, really, really hard time.
Yeah.
And I texted you about just feeling like, dude, I feel like I'm losing grip, and I'm like, just was really struggling mentally, and you said, do you remember the text you sent me?
I can remember sending you some texts. But I don't remember the exact words.
You were saying it's not your grip.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
his grip on you that holds you and keeps you from falling.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, okay, I can know that and see that in a different way because of my suffering.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And there's something about persecution. We're not supposed to go looking for it. We're not supposed to bring it upon ourselves. But when Christians face persecution, there is a joy that God provides that can't be known
otherwise
outside of it.
Yeah. There's a to your point, the peace that surpasses understanding, and they're continue to preach the word, and there's much joy in that city.
Yeah.
There's two challenges here for me and for the church that I see is that one, it's very easy to not believe that that preaching the gospel results in people's joy, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
Like you emphasize some of these things that like the reason why we speak, why there's a conflict that happens when we proclaim the gospel, and why it's worth it is because we're after people's joy.
Yeah. And
there's I think you mentioned the binding of the strong man so that the goods can be plundered.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's the strong man is bound in Christ, meaning it's time to plunder.
It's time to plunder.
And the plundering happens through the preaching of the gospel.
And that's the setting the captives free.
Yes.
Those who have been under the tyranny of the strong man who in Mark, Jesus, that's Satan.
Yeah.
Like now that he's bound, now all of these territories and things that Satan has had his hands in, like he's bound and now we're plundering.
Yeah. And there's the two challenges that I think we struggle with as a church in America, et cetera. One is we just don't believe that the joy in Christ is better, that our friends have joy in other things that are destructive.
Yeah.
We just don't believe it. Because if we did, why would we why would we be so easily not feel like it's not worth spending the time to tell people about it, right?
Right.
So that's one. We don't believe it, and maybe that's because we need to know it ourselves.
Yeah.
And then second, we want a joy that doesn't surpass understanding. Meaning we want to figure out a way, maybe we do want to connect the dots to people to Christ, but we want to work within their own paradigm of joy.
Yeah.
So that's what leads to a kind of like,
you do you.
You do you, but really Christ is going to make all that better, right? Like add Christ to your pursuits.
Yes.
And maybe eventually Christ will work on you to bring you to himself.
Yeah.
Get Jesus in the door, get people in the door with Jesus, without actually talking about how Jesus is a savior and saves you from sin. And, and one of the greatest joys someone can have is having a heart that wants to repent of their sin.
Yeah.
There's joy in that. There's a joy in being like, oh, I'm free from this. I don't want this anymore. Like, man, I could have been enslaved and said I do want it. Like you want someone to know that. So But that's the joy that surpasses understanding, the joy that finds its joy in repentance and in clinging to Christ. And I think that the two challenges, we either just don't believe that Christ really does bring joy, or two, we feel like we need to figure out how to make the joy of Christ fit the understanding of people.
Yes.
Rather than understand that there's just a otherworldly truth here.
Yeah.
That the world just does not get. I hardly get it. Like,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
cling through
Yeah.
a mirror dimly
Yeah.
to like the reality that
It still surpasses understanding.
it still surpasses
It
understanding.
always surpasses understanding.
But I can look at myself and say, I have nothing to offer.
Yeah.
And all the pursuits that I want that are outside of Christ are absolutely like worthless.
Yeah.
And the heart is constantly being trained towards desiring Christ and learning how to see all things as coming from, like, the cool thing about it is that it's actually kind of fun too, because you see, when Christ saves you and teaches you to rest in him, it's like the C.S. Lewis quote, aim for earth, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Aim for heaven, earth gets thrown in.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
when we were at the party on Sunday for Memorial Day and looking around, be like, this is like the most amazing party gathering ever, but it was like a totally different experience than other parties I've been to.
Yes.
That the people weren't, majority of people didn't acknowledge that Christ was Lord.
Yeah.
Or it was a party that, that wasn't even a part of it. But
Yeah.
I looked around and I know these people, and I know that they were looking at this and thinking the same thing I'm thinking, right? That look at what Christ has done. He's brought this people together.
Yeah.
Through joy in each other and delight in him.
Yep.
And so, but yeah, there's an otherworldliness to the gospel that we just simply cannot make it fit the understanding of the world. And at the end of the day, it's just preaching the clear message, the good news that, and that through that, God will make himself known to these people.
Right.
I was just, we got to end soon. Yeah. But I was reading, we'll end on this, okay?
Okay.
Because this is going to be my next Bible Thoughts podcast.
Gotcha.
Okay, Ezekiel, when he talks about the valley of the dry bones, right? And God says, look at all the bones.
Yeah.
And he asks, Son of man, can these bones live? And then Ezekiel says, Lord, you know.
You know. Yeah.
But do you know what he says to him to do? He says, go to the dry bones and prophesy my word over them.
Yeah.
Speak my word. Prophesy is just to proclaim. Proclaim my word over them. And
Right.
as he proclaims the word that God gives him over
Yeah.
the dry bones,
Yep.
the dry bones take on flesh.
Yes.
That is what happens when
Yeah.
we're born of the word.
Absolutely.
Right? That's
absolutely.
like, and this has been a year of like cultivating in my own heart this, like, I want to cultivate in my people, the youth, a confidence in the word that the world doesn't understand.
Yep.
Because I want us to stand firmly.
Yeah.
Because we know that that's where the life comes from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, there's massive contention over what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the word is very clear about things.
Yes.
And right now, there are specific things, primarily issues of gender and sexuality.
Confusion.
The massive confusion. And if the church is going to speak faithfully about those things for the joy
Yes.
of people who are caught up in bondage and slavery to that,
Yeah.
there's going to be conflict.
Yeah.
We're fighting for their joy.
Yep.
And you can't fight for their joy without talking about the chains that they've shackled themselves
Yes.
with.
Yes.
And when the church faithfully does that,
Yeah.
the same thing happens as is happening in Acts.
Yes.
There's conflict.
Yes.
And there's persecution.
Yeah.
And it's a refining moment for the church to ask itself what you just said. Do
Yeah.
we believe that this joy is superior?
Yes.
Do we believe that it's worth fighting
Yeah.
for? Do we believe that what the angel said in Luke 2 is true, is a great
Yeah.
joy for all peoples?
Yes.
And are we willing to suffer for it?
Yeah.
That's what's before us.
Yeah. I do think that the suffering will happen because of proclaiming faithfully the word.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. It's not just because you happen to give yourself the name Christian.
Yeah.
It's because you proclaim
The word.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're calling it a short one today because
Yeah.
we got places to go. But we hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with us for Sermon B-Sides. Until next time, trust Christ, go to church, and love your neighbor. See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.